The opening scene of The Sound of Music is truly the most perfect postcard picture. Yet we faced some terrible difficulties while filming that scene. The Sound of Music is a timeless classic and one of the greatest musicals ever made. But did you notice the mistakes that happened? Let's take a closer look and explore some surprising errors that appeared in the final cut of this beloved film. Even perfection has its quirks. Number 20. Maria had no experience playing guitar beforehand. Julie Andrews, known for her role as Maria in The Sound of Music, had no experience playing guitar before the filming began. To prepare for her role of both singing and playing guitar, she needed to learn the basics. However, she found it really difficult to play the guitar and sing at the same time. There was a lot to handle, especially with the cameras rolling. To ease her nerves before filming some guitar scenes, she would sometimes take a sip of schnapps, an Austrian strong drink, to help her relax and feel more comfortable. Christopher Plummer, who played Captain Von Trapp, also learned to play guitar and sing to prepare for his character. But despite practicing, the final version of the film still didn't have a scene of him actually singing or playing guitar. Instead, they brought in a professional singer and guitarist to re-record those parts, and their voices were used in the movie. Number 19. Kim Karath couldn't swim in real life. In the scene where the Von Trapp family is sitting in the boat and it capsizes, something truly scary happened in real life. Kim Karath, the little girl who played Gretel, the youngest child, couldn't swim. When the boat flipped over, everyone fell into the water. Julie Andrews, who played Maria, was tasked with grabbing Gretel and helping her out of the water safely. But when the boat tipped over, Julie lost her balance and fell backward, so she couldn't reach Gretel in time. For this reason, Kim Karath ended up swallowing a lot of water. Unfortunately, she got sick and started to vomit. That's right, and Heather Menzies, the actress who played Louisa, one of the older girls. Fortunately, Kim was okay afterward, but it really was a scary moment during filmings. Number 18. Christopher Plummer didn't enjoy working on this film. Christopher Plummer, who played Captain Von Trapp, really didn't like working on The Sound of Music. He thought the film was too sweet or sentimental for his taste. He even gave it funny nicknames like S and M or The Sound of Mucus as a joke instead of The Sound of Music. During the filming, he wasn't very happy. So, he spent a lot of time eating and drinking to cope with his feelings. So, he gained quite a bit of weight during the shooting. In fact, he gained so much weight that the costume team had to alter and adjust the clothes to fit his larger body. Although he caused some trouble for the film at the time, he later admitted that he truly appreciated the love everyone had for the movie. This is the next unexpected incident that appeared in the film. Number 17. The original home of the Von Trapp family was not used in the movie. The actual house where the Von Trapp family lived still exists, but it's not the house you see in the film. In the movie, the big house is actually a combination of two separate buildings. One is used to show the front, and the other is used to show the back. The interior scenes were not filmed in a real house. They were shot on a special set created in Hollywood. The famous house where they filmed the song 16 Going on 17 is also not real. It was built just for the movie. Later, it was moved twice and is now located at Hellbrunn Palace in Salzburg, Austria, where fans can visit to see it. Salzburg, Austria, is where fans can visit to see it. The courtyard of Nandberg Monastery, where Maria lived as a nun in the film, was also not filmed at the actual monastery. A designer named Boris Levin created a replica that looks very realistic, even down to each stone and specific window. Many people still think those scenes were shot at a real location. Finally, the scene of the Von Trapp family hiding in the cemetery to escape the Nazis was not filmed in Austria. That entire scene was recorded on a set built at Fox Studios in Hollywood, although some tour guides in Salzburg still insist the movie was filmed there. Number 16. The song Edelweiss is not a classic song from Austria. The song Edelweiss may sound like a classic folk tune from Austria or even resemble the Austrian national anthem. But it is not. In fact, this song was written in the United States for the Broadway musical The Sound of Music. All the music in the show that has an Austrian flavor was composed by the famous songwriting duo Rodgers and Hammerstein. Edelweiss is the last song they collaborated on. Unfortunately, Oscar Hammerstein passed away in 1960, just 9 months after The Sound of Music premiered on stage. Although it isn't an authentic Austrian song, Edelweiss became so famous that many people around the world think of it as part of Austria's heritage or culture. Number 15. Maria signed over her rights to the film. In 1956, a German film producer wanted to make a movie based on Maria von Trapp's book. He paid her $10,000 to buy the rights to her story. Maria asked if she could receive a share of the profits from the movie. However, the producer informed her that German law prohibits film companies from paying royalties. Any additional income from selling films to individuals who are not German citizens. At that time, Maria had become a EU citizen. Maria trusted him and signed the contract, unknowingly giving up all the film rights to her life story. A few weeks later, the producer came back and offered to pay her $9,000 in cash if she agreed immediately. This was a significant amount for the Von Trapp family. They had never earned so much money from singing. So she accepted the offer and signed the contract. Later, Maria found out that the producer had deceived her. There was no such law in Germany. He had tricked her and took complete control of her story for just a small amount of money. Although Maria and her family were treated unfairly, the creators of The Sound of Music, Rodgers and Hammerstein, still shared a small portion of the revenue from the play and the film with the Von Trapp family. They were not obligated to do so, but they chose to as a kind gesture. However, it was just a small fraction of what the Von Trapps could have earned if they had retained the rights. Nevertheless, Maria held no resentment. Later, she expressed that the joy and hope that the film and play brought to people around the world were worth much more than money. Number 14. Maria was only hired to tutor one child. Maria von Trapp did not begin her journey as a governess for all 7 children as depicted in the film. In reality, she was brought on board in 1926 to tutor one child. Georg von Trapp, a retired naval captain, had a daughter, also named Maria, who was very ill with scarlet fever. This was the illness that had taken the life of his wife 4 years earlier. His daughter could no longer walk the approximately 4 miles to schools. So, Georg went to the Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg to request someone to come teach her at home. At the Abbey, they chose a 21-year-old woman named Maria Augusta Trapp. She had attended a teacher training college in Vienna and was also residing at the Abbey due to her health issues. She was to tutor the girl for 10 months before she officially became a nun. However, as we know, things did not go as expected. Eventually, Maria stayed longer. Number 13. Julie Andrews played Maria. When screenwriter Ernest Lehman began writing the script for The Sound of Music, he only thought of one actress for the lead role of Maria, Julie Andrews. He thought she was the perfect fit for the role. But when director Robert Wise got involved, he initially had a different idea. His top choices were Grace Kelly, who became the Princess of Monaco and had stopped acting, and Shirley Jones, an actress famous for her roles in musicals. However, everything changed when Robert Wise watched some of the first footage of Mary Poppins, a film that Julie Andrews was involved in producing but had not yet been released. He was so impressed by her charm, voice, and presence on screen that he quickly agreed with Lehman that Julie Andrews was indeed the right choice for the role of Maria. Although Andrews was very excited about this role, she initially felt a bit hesitant. She didn't want the film to become too sweet or unrealistic, like the stage version sometimes was. But both Lehman and Wise shared her concerns. They wanted to create a story that felt more authentic and genuine. This made Andrews feel more at ease, and she decided to take the role. She signed a contract with 20th Century Fox to star in the film for a salary of $225,000, which was quite a sum back then. Ultimately, choosing Julie Andrews turned out to be a wonderful decision. Her portrayal of Maria became one of the most beloved performances in film history and played a huge role in making The Sound of Music the classic it is today. Number 12, Von Trapp is a loving father. In fact, Captain Georg von Trapp is much more affectionate and lovable than he is depicted in The Sound of Music. One of the things that really bothers the Von Trapp children is how their father is portrayed as cold, strict, and distant. It's true he used a whistle to call his children, and each child had their own sound to recognize when he called them. He also had them wear matching sailor outfits. However, unlike in the film, he didn't make them march around the house or stand in straight lines like soldiers. In reality, Georg von Trapp was a kind and thoughtful father, even though he sometimes seemed a bit overwhelmed by all his responsibilities. According to author Tom Santoro, it was actually Maria, the stepmother, who needed to learn how to express her emotions. She herself was raised in a very strict and cold environment, so it took her a while to easily show love and warmth. Johannes von Trapp, the youngest son, once shared with the BBC that his father was a charming, generous, and open man, not the strict military-type parent depicted in the film. He also mentioned that his mother, Maria, tried to change how the captain was portrayed in the movie to better match his true character. But sadly, she couldn't convince the filmmakers. It didn't stop there. Let's see what happens next. Number 11. Father Werner was replaced in the film. An important character in the true story of the Von Trapp family was left out of The Sound of Music. During the Great Depression of the 1930s, the Von Trapp family lost much of their wealth when their bank collapsed. To make ends meet, they started renting out rooms in their spacious home. One of the tenants was a Catholic priest named Father Franz Wasner. After hearing this family sing, Father Wasner realized their true musical talent. He took on the role of music director and collaborator with them to enhance their singing skills. Maria von Trapp once remarked that he slowly but surely turned them into a real musical group. Thanks to his guidance, the family transitioned to being professional singers. Father Werner even escaped from Austria with the Von Trapp family and toured all over Europe and the United States with them. A writer named Tom Santoro called him the musical force that inspired the singers in the Trapp family. However, the film does not feature him. Instead, they created a fictional character named Max de Wilder to represent the person who assisted them in their music composition journey. The filmmakers believed that portraying a priest as the music mentor would overshadow Maria's character, so they left Father Werner out of the story. Number 10. Maria is depicted as quiet. Maria Augusta Kuchera, later known as Maria von Trapp, was born in January 1905. When she was young, both her father and mother passed away, leaving her an orphan. She was then sent to live with an uncle who was said to be very cruel and abusive. As she grew up, Maria attended a teacher's college. During her time there, she deepened her understanding of religion and eventually converted to Catholicism. Later, she joined the Nonnberg Abbey in Salzburg and began training to become a nun. In The Sound of Music, Maria is portrayed as a quiet, shy, and gentle person. However, in reality, she was quite lively and tried to adhere to the strict rules of the convent. Maria later confessed that she caused quite a bit of chaos at the convent. In a 1980 article, she described herself as a terrible person, the worst you could imagine. She did things like breaking dishes, talking when she was supposed to be silent, running around the yard, whistling Gregorian hymns that were meant to be serious and sacred, and even climbing on the convent roof. So, while the film portrays her as calm and obedient, Maria in real life was quite spirited and sometimes a bit mischievous. Number 9. Maria was unsure about whether to marry Captain von Trapp. In fact, Maria was uncertain about marrying Captain Georg von Trapp. In The Sound of Music, they marry about a year after she comes to his home as a governess. But in real life, They actually married in 1927, which is over 10 years before they left Austria in 1938. Georg was much older than Maria. He was 25 years her senior, and their relationship did not begin with a romantic story. He loved her and wanted her not only to stay as a tutor, but also to be the mother of his children. When he asked her to stay with him and take on that role, she agreed. Maria later said that she believed God helped Georg choose his words carefully. She thought that if he directly proposed to her, she might refuse. At first, Maria did not marry him because she loved him. She married him because she truly cared for the children and wanted to help them. Over time, true love grew between them. And just when you think you've discovered everything, here's another detail that filmmakers haven't quite captured correctly. Eighth, the Trapp family did not sneak through the He-Mounters. Although the Von Trapp family left Austria just a day before the Nazis closed the borders, their departure was not as dramatic as depicted in The Sound of Music. Official records and interviews stored at the U.S. National Archives reveal that their escape was actually quite peaceful and well-organized. In a 2003 interview with Opera News, Maria, the daughter of Von Trapp, clarified that they did not sneak away by climbing mountains with heavy luggage and instruments as the film suggests. Instead, they left during the day, took a train, and acted as if they were just traveling. She mentioned that they told everyone they were going to America to sing, and added that they pretended everything was normal so no one suspected they were escaping. The family did not travel alone. They were accompanied by the conductor, Pastor Franz Wasner, and their secretary, Martha Zuckbauer. In the movie, Pastor Wasner is transformed into the fictional character Max de Weiler, who stays in Austria. However, in reality, Wasner stayed with the family and supported their music career direction. Their journey began with a trip to Italy. Georg von Trapp was able to apply for Italian citizenship because he was born in an area that became part of Italy in 1920. From Italy, his family moved to London and then took a ship to the United States. When they arrived in America in the early 1940s, the Von Trapp family toured the country as the Trapp Family Singers, performing music to make a living. Eventually, they settled in Stowe, Vermont. In 1950, they opened an inn with 27 rooms, which became a popular destination. Today, the Trapp Family Lodge is still in operation and has expanded into a larger, more modern facility. It remains owned and managed by the descendants of the Von Trapp family. Seventh, the Von Trapp family was not as wealthy as depicted in the film. In The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family is portrayed as extremely wealthy, living in a beautiful house with many servants and having no financial issues. However, their actual circumstances were quite different. In the early 1930s, the world faced a severe economic downturn known as the Great Depression. Many people lost their jobs and savings, and the Von Trapp family was no exception. They lost a large portion of their wealth when their bank collapsed, and they were no longer as wealthy as they once were. Unable to maintain their large residence, this family had to let go of most of their staff. To make ends meet, they began renting out rooms in their home to travelers. This was a significant change from their previous lifestyle. To generate extra income, the Von Trapp family also started considering singing as a way to earn a living. They always loved singing together as a family, but performing in front of an audience was a whole different challenge. Captain Georg von Trapp, the father, was not too keen on this idea. His daughter, Eleanor, mentioned in an interview with the Washington Post in 1978 that her father's going on stage nearly broke his heart. She explained that he never intended to look down on the upper class. He just wanted to protect his children and keep their privacy. However, the family still needed money, so they began performing at concerts and festivals. Audiences loved their music, and they quickly became popular. In 1936, they even won first place in a major music competition in Austria. This achievement helped launch their singing career and took them to perform in many other countries, including the United States. Eventually, they moved to America to escape the threats of World War II and start a new life. The children in the movie were given the wrong names. In the film The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family has 7 children, each with their own name and personality. However, in reality, their names, ages, and even the total number of children were different. In 1926, Maria, the real nun, was sent from her convent to care for a child. This child was also named Maria. She was the second daughter of Captain Georg von Trapp. She suffered from scarlet fever, a serious illness that took her mother's life 4 years earlier. Since she was still recovering, she couldn't travel between school and home. Therefore, a governess named Maria was invited to teach her at home. Many were shocked to learn that one of Georg's daughters was actually named Maria, just like the woman he would later marry. But in the film, none of the children's real names were used. The filmmakers decided to change all the character names and even some genders to better fit the story. The actual children of the Von Trapp family from Georg's first marriage are listed from oldest to youngest: Rupert, Agatha, Maria, Franziska, Werner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina. In the film, the oldest child is Liesel, a 16-year-old girl who performs the famous song 16, even though she is actually 17. But in real life, the oldest child is Rupert, a man who was already in his 20s when the family left Austria. He was already a doctor. On Thursdays, the Von Trapp family had a passion for music. The Von Trapp family loved music even before Maria entered their lives. They were a family with a musical tradition, and singing played an important role in their daily routine. In both the true story and the movie The Sound of Music, this family won first place at the Salzburg Music Festival. However, the actual events differ somewhat from what is portrayed in the film. In the movie, Captain Georg von Trapp is depicted as a strict man who forbids music in his home. In reality, he was quite the opposite and very encouraging of music. He and his first wife loved music and made sure their children were immersed in it even before Maria joined the family. Fourth, Von Trapp and Maria married earlier than the film suggests. In the movie The Sound of Music, Maria and Captain Georg von Trapp fall in love and marry just as the Nazis begin to take power in Austria in 1938. This makes their wedding seem quite intense, as if they are rushing to be together before things get worse. However, that part of the film does not accurately reflect what actually happened. In reality, Maria and Georg von Trapp were married many years earlier on November 26, 1927, which is over 10 years before the Nazis invaded Austria. At that time, Maria was just 22 years old, while Georg was 47, showing a significant age difference between them. Over time, Maria developed strong bonds with all the children and with Georg as well. In her writings, Maria mentioned that she did not marry Georg because she fell in love with him at first sight. Instead, her love for the children was the reason she wanted to stay with them. Over time, her feelings for Georg grew deeper, and they became true partners in life. When they married in 1927, there was still no threat from the Nazis. Hitler had not yet taken over Austria, and their marriage had nothing to do with war or politics. They began their life together peacefully, raising their children and later having 3 more. It wasn't until many years later, in the late 1930s, that life in Austria became dangerous. Georg von Trapp was strongly opposed to the Nazis, and the safety of his family was in jeopardy. That was when they decided to leave Austria. But by that time, Maria and Georg had been married for over 10 years and had built a strong, united family. Let's take a look at another surprising mistake you might have overlooked. Third, some of the Von Trapp children were overlooked in the film. In the movie The Sound of Music, the Von Trapp family has 7 children. Each child has their own name and unique personality, but they are not exactly like the real Von Trapp children. The filmmakers gave them new names and created different characters to make the story more engaging for viewers. The 7 children in the film were inspired by the real children of Captain Georg von Trapp and his first wife, Agatha Whitehead. After Agatha passed away in 1922, Georg became a widower with 7 children. Their real names were Rupert, Agatha, Maria, Franziska, Werner, Hedwig, Johanna, and Martina. So, the names we see in the movie, like Liesel, Friedrich, Louisa, and Gretel, are not their real names. The filmmakers changed these names and personalities to add drama, humor, and emotional moments that fit the story better. Georg and Maria had 3 more children after they got married. In 1927, these children are not mentioned in the film. Their names were Ross Marie, born in 1929, Eleanor, born in 1931, and Johannes, born in 1939. Johannes was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. At the time he was born, the Von Trapp family had escaped from Austria and found safety in America. The movie does not include these 3 little children, perhaps because it was telling a grand story and needed to keep things simple to save time and content. Adding more children could make the film too complicated or too long. So, while The Sound of Music only has 7 children, the Von Trapp family actually had up to 10 children, 7 from Georg's first marriage and 3 more with Maria. Secondly, Christopher Plummer did not want to play the captain. Casting for the role of Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music was indeed a challenge. Finding someone to play Maria was much easier. Many famous actors were considered for the role of the captain, such as Bing Crosby, Yul Brynner, Sean Connery, and Richard Burton. However, the film's director, Robert Wise, really had his eye on Christopher Plummer for this role. He had seen Plummer's performance on Broadway and was truly impressed with his talent. Even so, Christopher Plummer was initially not interested in this role. He turned it down multiple times. He didn't like how the character was written and felt it might not suit him. Eventually, Robert Wise traveled all the way to London to meet him in person. In their meeting, Wise shared his vision for the film and how he wanted to portray the captain. He also assured Plummer that he could collaborate with the screenwriter to improve the character and make him more appealing. After considering all of this, Plummer finally decided to take the role. In June 1960, 20th Century Fox paid $125,000 to buy the rights to adapt The Sound of Music into a film. That amount is equivalent to about $10 million or $100 in 2016. They also agreed to share 10% of the film's profits with the original creators. First, 20th Century Fox was nearly bankrupt until The Sound of Music came along and saved the day. Back in the early 1960s, 20th Century Fox was facing some serious financial troubles. They had poured a lot of money into making a film called Cleopatra. Originally, the film was expected to cost just $2 million. But due to many issues during production, the budget skyrocketed to over $44 million. Although Cleopatra made some money at the box office, it wasn't enough to cover the massive costs. The studio was on the brink of bankruptcy. Then, The Sound of Music was born. Initially, Fox wasn't sure if the film would be a success. Musicals had lost some of their popularity, and they worried that audiences might not be interested anymore. However, when The Sound of Music premiered in 1965, it became a huge hit. Audiences loved the storyline, the wonderful songs, and the amazing performances by Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer. The film was received so warmly that it became the highest-grossing film of 1965. But that wasn't the end of it. By November 1966, the film had earned the title of the highest-grossing film of all time, surpassing Gone with the Wind, which had held that record for 24 years. Thanks to the incredible success of The Sound of Music, 20th Century Fox managed to escape bankruptcy. The profits helped the studio recover and avoid financial ruin. This touching film not only became a beloved classic, but also saved a studio that was in dire straits. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and click on the next video showing on your screen.